Trump capping off his third whirlwind week in office by signing more EOs and scarfing down questions from the press and charming the Japanese prime minister during a news conference.
I wish I was as handsome as him, but I'm not. I'm very proud of the job that this group of young people, generally young people, but very smart people, they're doing. They're doing it at my insistence. I've instructed him to go check out education, to check out the Pentagon, which is the military. I see Maxine Waters, a lowlife. I see, all these people. They don't love our country. Kash Patel is going to do a great job. And we're going to bring back the reputation of the FBI. We will have relations with North Korea and with Kim Jong-un. I got along with them very well. We have illegal immigrants on Social Security, and we're going to find out who they are and take them out.
Unable to respond to a theoretical question. That's the official answer that we have.
That's a very good answer.
The Trump news tornado doesn't end there. 47 also zeroing in on the one issue that will secure him a third term. Quote, I will be signing an executive order next week ending the ridiculous Biden push for paper straws, which don't work. Back to plastic, Jessica.
Is that a joke?
Finally.
This is, Dana says, if you got like an 80-20 issue or a 90-10 issue, take the W. I don't think you're going to meet much resistance on the paper straw front. I think it's great that the Japanese prime minister came. President Trump had a great relationship with Abe, who used to be the prime minister and was unfortunately assassinated in 2022. And they obviously want to make sure that they have a good and secure relationship and that there won't be any sort of trade war or increase in tariffs. And there's a lot to talk about as well in terms of countering China, even though obviously Japan does a ton of trade with them. So maintaining our kind of, post-World War II relationship is top of the list, and it's a big deal to be the second one in, right behind Netanyahu, and that was obviously a big priority for the Japanese.
Yeah, I think the Indian prime minister is coming pretty soon. And Judge, the hostility from the press is just gone. Remember the Russia, it's gone.
I think they gave up.
Yeah.
I think they know, first of all, they lost their credibility. They know that the American people didn't buy into it. They know that there's no one to sell it to anymore. But I think that what's amazing about this, and both you and Jessica reference it, you've got the prime minister from Japan, and then we had Netanyahu earlier in the week. We've got Modi coming in from India. I mean, and then you've got the President Trump was talking about, a relationship with North Korea. This is a president who believes in talking. He believes in having discussions with leaders of foreign countries, because you can't just shut down the world the way Joe Biden did. He didn't talk to anybody. He didn't even go to the G20 photograph. He didn't go to the dinners. I mean, he went to bed. I mean, it was just crazy. And, I spoke to Rick Grinnell today, and I talked to him about what happened and how he got those prisoners back from Venezuela. And he said, simply talking. There was no money exchanged. There was no prisoner exchange. Maduro, we went there and we said, we're not leaving without 6. And he described it in an interview that I did, and it was just mind-blowing that, and then what he said was, for all the prisoners in Venezuela and these guys that they took off on the plane ride back to the States, they had never had a wellness check by the United States. And that's something that I could tell Dana, that shake your head. It's incredible. Anyone who's a prisoner or a hostage, an American in any other country, the State Department is supposed to make a wellness check. None of those guys even knew whether that Donald Trump or President Trump knew anything about them. They were brought there in black hoods. They didn't know what was going to happen. That's what a leader is.
And where can we see the interview with Grinnell?
On my radio show,
all right.
WABC.
WABC. Greg, remember when Biden used to do these joint pressers and he had the note cards with the faces of the reporters and the names? Those days are gone.
Yeah, and remember the old days when the media and the Dems would tell us that the world was laughing at us over Trump. And we've learned that everything they told us was the opposite. They weren't laughing at Trump. They were made anxious and confused by a befuddled puppet called Joe Biden. The truth is, the world is actually pretty enamored by Trump because he's the most American leader we've seen, warts and all. The Japanese prime minister loves him because he reminds him of Godzilla. True fact. You didn't know that? But think about what America is, okay? It's big, it's loud, it's fast, it's forceful, it could be arrogant, it could be a little scary, a little bit obnoxious. That's America. That's also Trump.
It's like a Camaro.
Yes, exactly. Trump is a human Camaro. Imagine how the world viewed America while the military was being feminized, or we were degrading our own history, or self-flagellating our country over its role as an oppressor. They were like, what's going on with America? Because that was not our brand. That was not our brand. You know, Joe Biden fronting the United States was like Dylan Mulvaney fronting Budweiser. It just was like, it didn't make any sense. And you know, Bud's not recovered from that, but America is, because we finally got the brand right. I don't think you could find a more American, like, front-facing emblem. Like, if America were a beer, Trump's face would be on it.
Right. Even though he wouldn't be able to drink the beer because he doesn't drink.
Doesn't drink. Yeah.
Dana, your thoughts?
Well, I was thinking about that 90-10 issue, meaning that 90% of the country agrees with something, so you might as well just get on board and be for what's going to happen. Back when I worked at the White House, I sometimes would call my sister, who lives in Southeast Denver,
You too.
and I'd say, hey, Angie, what did you think about such and such?
Yep.
And if my sister knew about it, I knew we were either in big trouble or we had a live one, like we had a good issue or we were in a lot of trouble. The only thing I heard from my sister today is, yay, no more paper straws. So that is a winning issue. Kamala Harris was on board to ban plastic straws in 2020. She will never be
She would have
president.
been impeached.
She'll never be president.
All right, up next, Kamala Harris getting banned